This morning, you threw away something more powerful than any pesticide sitting on a store shelf right now. You didn't know it. Nobody told you. You just squeezed your lemon, tossed the peel into the trash, and moved on with your day. The same way millions of gardeners do every single morning without realizing what they're throwing away. Here's what's strange. A single lemon costs maybe 50 cents. The peel, the part you just discarded, contains a compound so effective at protecting seedlings that a 2002 study out of the University of Florida documented up to 97% repellency against aphids during the most vulnerable stage of a plant's life. And the protection doesn't stop there. Once you bury that peel in the soil, it begins breaking down into an acidic microenvironment that suffocates the exact fungi that kill young roots, doing quietly for free what a $15 bag of commercial seedling mix promises to do and often fails. This isn't a hack. This isn't a trick. This is a complete seedling system that poor farmers along the Mediterranean coast used for over 200 years before a multi-billion-dollar industry decided you should buy plastic trays instead and forget this ever existed. So before you reach for another seedling tray, before you spend another dollar on starter mix, stay with me. Because by the end of this video, you're going to look at a lemon peel completely differently. And the first question I want you to sit with is this. What exactly is happening inside that peel, underground, during those first 3 weeks? The answer is going to surprise you. Picture a narrow stone windowsill somewhere in rural Sicily, sometime around 1870. A woman, no name recorded in any history book, no academic paper written about her, is pressing a pinch of tomato seeds into a hollowed-out orange rind filled with dark soil. She doesn't have clay pots. She can't afford them. What she has is what she just ate for breakfast, and an understanding passed down from her mother and her mother's mother before that. The skin of a citrus fruit holds something that protects a seedling in its first days of life. She doesn't call it limonene. She doesn't know the word pH, but she knows that seeds started in citrus rinds survive longer, resist rot better, and transplant more cleanly into garden soil than seeds started anywhere else. She knows this because she has watched it happen, season after season, for as long as she can remember. This knowledge wasn't rare. It wasn't secret. From the coastal farms of southern Italy to the terraced gardens of Moorish Spain to the small kitchen plots of North Africa, generations of poor farmers used citrus rinds, coconut shells, banana skins, and dried gourds as biodegradable seedling containers. Not because they read about it in a journal, because they couldn't afford to waste anything, and the land kept rewarding them for it. Then came the 20th century, then came plastic, and then came an industry that discovered something very important. You cannot sell a woman what she already pulls out of her own kitchen. So instead, you convince her that what she has is primitive, that what she needs is modern, that the $12 tray of peat moss pellets, the $9 bag of sterile starter mix, the $6 pack of biodegradable plastic pots, these are progress. These are science. What her grandmother did was just poverty, and so the knowledge faded. Not because it stopped working, but because someone needed it to disappear. What disappeared with it was something more than a gardening trick. It was the understanding that the most sophisticated seedling protection system nature ever designed was already sitting in your fruit bowl, waiting to be used. Let's talk about the size of what replaced it. The global seed tray and seedling container market was valued at $3.8 billion in 2022. By 2030, analysts project it will cross $5.2 billion. That is not a market built on superior science. That is a market built on forgetting. Every dollar spent on plastic seedling trays, every bag of commercial starter mix pulled off a garden center shelf represents one more gardener who never looked down at the lemon peel in their hand and asked the right question. The companies operating in this space are not small. The top manufacturers of seedling trays and peat-based growing media operate across North America, Europe, and Southeast Asia, supplying everything from backyard gardeners to industrial greenhouse operations. They fund gardening magazines. They sponsor YouTube channels. They place their products at eye level in every nursery and hardware store you have ever walked into. And none of them, not one, has any financial interest in telling you that a woman in 1870 with nothing but a citrus rind and a handful of soil was achieving results that their entire product line exists to replicate. Think about that for a moment. A $3.8 billion industry sustained in part by the erasure of a technique that costs nothing. Now here is where it gets scientifically interesting, because this isn't just about money and memory. The reason that Sicilian woman's method worked, the reason farmers across 3 continents independently arrived at the same practice without ever communicating with each other, comes down to chemistry happening inside the peel itself. Chemistry that modern science has now documented in precise detail, even if the industry built on replacing it would prefer you never looked it up. That chemistry has a name, and once you understand it, you will never see a lemon the same way again. The compound is called limonene. It sits inside the oil glands of the lemon peel, those tiny, almost invisible pockets scattered across the surface that release a fine mist of fragrance when you bend the skin. That smell you associate with clean kitchens and fresh juice is not just pleasant. It is, from the perspective of a soft-bodied insect, deeply threatening. Limonene belongs to a class of organic compounds called terpenes, the same family of molecules that gives pine trees their sharp scent, that makes lavender repel moths, that causes certain weeds to clear a space around themselves by chemically discouraging competitors. Plants have been producing terpenes as a defense system for hundreds of millions of years. The lemon didn't develop limonene for your lemonade. It developed limonene to protect itself. And when you place a fresh lemon rind around a seedling, you are borrowing that protection for your own. In 2002, researchers at the University of Florida published findings showing that limonene achieved up to 97% repellency against aphids, one of the most destructive soft-bodied pests for young seedlings, under controlled conditions. Aphids don't avoid limonene because it smells bad to them. They avoid it because at sufficient concentration, limonene disrupts their nervous system. It interferes with the neurotransmitter octopamine, which insects depend on for basic motor function. Contact with high concentrations doesn't just repel them, it immobilizes them. Here is the detail that most people miss, and it matters enormously for how you use this method. Limonene concentration in the peel is at its absolute peak the moment the fruit is cut. Within 24 hours of exposure to open air, oxidation begins breaking the compound down. Within 48 hours, a significant portion of its potency has already dissipated. The peel your grandmother left drying on the windowsill for a week still smells like lemon, but the concentration of active limonene has dropped to a fraction of what it was the morning the fruit was cut. This is why the method works only when you use the peel fresh, not yesterday's peel, not the one sitting in the compost bin since Tuesday, the one from the lemon you squeezed this morning, still moist, still fragrant, still carrying the full chemical arsenal the tree spent months building. That single detail separates the people who try this and say it worked from the people who try it and say it didn't. Freshness is not a preference here. It is the mechanism, and limonene is only half the story. Once that fresh peel goes into the soil, something quieter begins to happen. Something that operates not in the air around the seedling, but in the microscopic world directly beneath it. As the lemon rind begins to break down, it releases 2 categories of compounds into the surrounding soil. The first is citric acid, the same organic acid that gives lemon juice its sharpness. The second is a group of phenolic compounds including hesperidin and eriocitrin, which are concentrated heavily in the white pith layer just beneath the outer skin. Together, these substances do something that no commercial seedling tray has ever been able to replicate. They temporarily reshape the chemistry of the soil immediately surrounding the root zone. Specifically, they pull the local pH down, not dramatically, not permanently, but precisely, into a range of approximately 5.5 to 6.2. That number matters more than most gardeners realize. The majority of vegetable crops and leafy greens perform optimally in exactly that range. But more importantly, the fungi most responsible for damping off disease, the silent killer of seedlings worldwide, caused primarily by Pythium and Rhizoctonia species, thrive in neutral to alkaline conditions, typically between pH 6.8 and 7.5. By quietly acidifying the immediate root environment, the decomposing lemon peel creates conditions where those fungi struggle to establish, while the seedling's roots push forward unimpeded. This is not a broad-spectrum soil treatment. It is something more elegant than that. It is a localized intervention, targeted at exactly the zone where the seedling is most vulnerable, lasting exactly as long as the peel takes to break down, roughly 2 to 4 weeks, which maps almost perfectly onto the window when damping off does its worst damage. No $50 bag of starter mix does this. Sterile commercial media eliminates fungal threats by removing biology from the equation entirely. The lemon peel method does the opposite. It doesn't sterilize. It competes. It shifts the microbial balance at the root zone in favor of the seedling. Using chemistry, the plant kingdom has been refining for millions of years. This is the moment I want you to reframe how you think about what you are doing when you garden. You are not filling containers with dirt and hoping for the best. You are designing a micro-ecosystem. Every material you introduce to that root zone either supports or undermines a biological negotiation that is already happening without you. The lemon peel doesn't protect your seedling. It gives your seedling the conditions it needs to protect itself. That shift in thinking, from gardener as caretaker to gardener as ecosystem architect, is exactly what the industry does not want you to make. Because the moment you start thinking that way, you stop needing their products. Now, I want to be straight with you because this channel doesn't trade in false promises. The lemon peel method is not universal. It is not a replacement for every seedling system in every situation. And if you walk away from this video without understanding its limits, you will use it wrong and blame the technique for your own misapplication. First, the pH shift that makes this method powerful for tomatoes, peppers, eggplants, and most leafy greens makes it actively harmful for plants that prefer alkaline conditions. Brassicas like cabbage and broccoli, certain herbs like sage and lavender, and any seedling you intend to transplant into naturally chalky or limestone soil. These do not belong in a lemon peel. Introducing localized acidity around a seedling that needs neutral to alkaline soil is not neutral. It is a stressor. Know your plant's preferred pH before you reach for the peel. Second, the antifungal protection window is real, but it is short. The phenolic compounds that suppress damping off fungi are most active during the first 2 to 3 weeks of decomposition. After that, the peel has largely done its chemical work and transitions into straightforward organic matter. Still useful as slow-release nutrition, but no longer providing active protection. If your seedling has not established a healthy root system within that window, the peel will not continue defending it. Third, limonene at very high concentration can mildly inhibit germination in certain sensitive seeds, particularly fine-seeded herbs like thyme and marjoram. For these, allow the peel to sit in soil for 24 hours before seeding, giving the most volatile compounds time to partially dissipate before the seed makes contact. These are not reasons to abandon the method. They are reasons to use it with precision. And precision, not blind faith in any single technique, is what separates a gardener who gets results from one who collects tips. With that honesty established, let's talk about exactly how to do this right. This is the part where everything becomes simple. You have the science, you have the history. Now you need exactly 4 things: a fresh lemon, a spoon, a small amount of loose potting mix, and seeds. That is the entire material list. Total cost, assuming you already drink lemon water or cook with citrus in any form, is effectively zero. Start with the lemon the moment you cut it. Once you have juiced 1/2, take a spoon and gently scrape out any remaining pulp, leaving the white pith layer intact. That pith is where the phenolic compounds concentrate. Do not scrape it away. Do not rinse the inside of the peel with water. You are not cleaning it. You are preserving a chemical environment that took the tree months to build. Next, check the bottom of the peel. Most halved lemons will have a small natural depression at the base, enough to sit stable on a flat surface. If yours tends to roll, press it gently into a shallow tray of damp soil to anchor it. Then fill the cavity with a loose, well-draining potting mix. Not heavy garden soil, not dense compost. Something light enough that a seedling root can push through it without resistance. A standard seed starting mix works well, or a blend of coconut coir and perlite if you have it. Fill to approximately 3/4 of the peel's depth, leaving space at the top so water doesn't immediately run off. Sow your seeds at the depth recommended for the variety, typically 2 to 3 times the diameter of the seed itself. For tomatoes, peppers, And most vegetables, 1 to 2 seeds per peel is sufficient. Cover lightly, press gently to ensure contact with the growing medium, and water carefully using a spray bottle rather than pouring, which can displace small seeds or compact the surface. Place your lemon peel seedling containers in a warm location with indirect light. Water when the surface feels dry to the touch, always with a gentle spray. You will notice within the first few days that the peel itself begins to feel slightly softer as decomposition begins its slow work from the outside inward. When your seedling has developed its first set of true leaves, not the initial seed leaves, but the second set that carry the plant's actual genetic shape, it is ready to transplant. And here is where this method delivers its final advantage. You do not remove the seedling from the peel. You plant the entire thing directly into the ground. The peel is now soft enough that roots will penetrate it within days, and as it continues breaking down over the following 2 to 3 weeks, it releases its remaining organic acids and nutrients directly into the root zone at exactly the moment the young plant is establishing itself in its permanent home. Compare this to a standard peat pellet at 0.25 per unit, a plastic seedling tray cell at 0.15 per use, or a full commercial biodegradable pot at 0.40 to 0.80 each. A 50-cell tray of peat pellets runs $12 to $18 at most garden centers. The lemon peel system costs nothing, biodegrades faster, delivers active chemical protection for the first 3 weeks, and leaves zero plastic waste in your soil or your bin. The Sicilian woman on that stone windowsill in 1870 didn't have a receipt for any of this. She had something rarer, the understanding that the best tools for growing food were already inside the food itself. There is something worth sitting with before you close this video. The woman on that Sicilian windowsill never filed a patent. She never launched a product line. She never needed to because what she knew belonged to everyone, passed hand to hand, season to season, across generations of people who grew food not as a hobby, but as a matter of survival. That knowledge kept families fed through droughts, through wars, through every kind of scarcity the 20th century could manufacture. And then in the span of a few decades, an industry worth nearly $4 billion quietly made sure you never heard about it. Not through conspiracy, not through malice, through something more mundane and more effective than either, through convenience, through advertising, through the steady replacement of inherited knowledge with packaged solutions. They didn't steal the technique. They simply made you forget to look for it. What you do with a lemon peel tomorrow morning is a small act. It will not dismantle a $5.2 billion market projection. It will not bring back every piece of agricultural knowledge that the last century buried. But it is a beginning of something more important than a gardening method. It is the habit of asking whether what you already have might be enough before reaching for what someone else is selling. Every seed you start in a lemon peel is a quiet refusal, a refusal to pay for what nature already provided, a refusal to accept that complexity requires purchase, a refusal to let another generation grow up without knowing what their great-grandmothers understood, without a single university degree between them. If that idea means something to you, share this video with one person who grows food. Not to help this channel, to keep the knowledge moving the way it was always meant to move, person to person, freely without a price tag attached. That is the only algorithm that has ever mattered. And if you want to go deeper, next week we are uncovering another technique that disappeared at almost exactly the same moment the chemical fertilizer industry found its footing in the 1950s. A method that turns the water you boil your vegetables in into one of the most effective natural root stimulants ever documented. Same principle, zero cost, completely forgotten. Make sure you are here for it.